Good morning and welcome to the official weigh-ins for UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Spivac. Making up one half of tomorrow's main event, Derek the Black Beast Lewis. 265 for the number 7 ranked Derek Lewis. The other half of our main event in the heavyweight division, Sergey Spivac. 255.5 for Sergey Spivac, the polar bear. Your main event is official. First fighter to the scales in the light heavyweight division. Co-main event feature is Da Un Jung. 205 for Da Un Jung. And next up in the middleweight division, Jung Young Park. 185.5 for the Iron Turtle, Jung Young Park. Next up in the women's flyweight division, Ji Young Kim. 125.5 for Fire Fist. Next up in the road to UFC featherweight final, Jung Young Lee. 145 for Jung Young Lee. Staying with the road to UFC this time, the flyweight final to the scale, Sung Guk Choi. 125.5 for Sung Guk Choi. All right, next up in the featherweight division, making his long-awaited comeback, Do Ho Choi. 145.5 for the Korean Superboy, Do Ho Choi. Next up, it's the final for the road to UFC lightweight bracket. This is Jeka Sadegi. 155 for Indonesia's Jeka Sadegi. Staying with the road to UFC tournament, this time down at the flyweight bracket. Next to the scale, Hyun Sung Park. 124.5 for Hyun Sung Park. Next up in the featherweight division, Carl Nelson. 145.5 for Nelson, who returns to the featherweight division. Moving up now to the middleweight division, next to the scale, Dennis Tululin. 186 for Dennis Tululin. Next up, featuring in the road to UFC featherweight final, Yi Jia. 145.5 for China's Yi Jia. Welterweight division next, and opening up the main card, Adam Fugit. 170.5 for Adam Fugit. Next up, kicking off the night in the flyweight division, Jesus Aguilar. 125 for the smiling Jesus Aguilar. Next to the scale in the welterweight division, Yusaku Kinoshita. 170.5 for the Dana White Contender Series alum, Kinoshita. Next up, it's the Road to UFC lightweight finalist, Anshul Jubilee. 155.5 for Jubilee. He and Sadeghi will close out the prelims tomorrow. And opening the night in the flyweight division, Tatsuro Taira. 125.5 for Japan's Tatsuro Taira. Next up in the women's flyweight division, Mandy Boom. 125.5 for Germany's Mandy Boom. Next up, it's Road to UFC bantamweight finalist Rinya Nakamura. 135 for Rinya Nakamura. Next up in a co-main event in the light heavyweight division, Devin Clark. 204.5 for Devin Clark. And next up is Road to UFC bantamweight finalist Toshiomi Kazama. 136 for Toshiomi Kazama. Staying with heavyweights here, next to the scale, Blagoy Ivanov. 256.5 for the number 15 ranked Blagoy Ivanov. All right, final fighter is with us in the heavyweight division, Marcin Tybura. 253.5 for the number 10 ranked Marcin Tybura. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the weigh-ins for UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Spivac. We kick off the prelims at 7 PT and then the main card at 10 Pacific. Thank you very much.